Welcome to Life with the Shan. November 17th, and this month is flying by really quick, honestly. The holidays are going to be here before we know it, and then in January, I'm doing the Dopey race at Disney. So the Dopey race is a running race. It's 4 days of running. Thursday, you run a 5K, which is 3 miles. Friday, you do a 10K, which is 6 miles. And then Saturday, you do a half marathon, which is 13 miles. And then Sunday, you do a full marathon, which is 26.2 miles. So I'm running as much as I can during this busy holiday season of just the holidays, and then running a small business when, it's crazy during the holiday season. And then I'm getting married in February, so we have our couple shower, a lot of time with friends and family, which is very, very nice. It's just a busy next few months. So right now, we're halfway through November. I'm trying to soak it in while I still can, and I wanted to show what I've read so far this month. I've done a lot of audiobooks to keep my reading up, and just because sometimes I don't want to watch shows while I'm sewing or working and making book sleeves, so I've been switching to audiobooks a little bit. One reason for this is because I was binge watching Gilmore Girls again while working, and then I got to the last few episodes of the initial show, not the 4 seasons afterwards, but just the initial show, and I stopped watching it because I didn't want it to end, as I've said before. So I stopped watching it. Maybe I'll finish the last few episodes in a little while, but I've watched the show multiple times. I know how it ends, but I just don't want this rewatch to end. I know, it's a little weird, but it's how I am. So the first book I read this month, or listened to actually, was Daisy Darker. And I was really surprised by this book. I thought I would not like it. I was really hesitant to read it, which is one reason I did the audiobook instead of getting it through Book of the Month. The synopsis of Daisy Darker reminded me a lot of And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie and The Guest List by Lucy Foley. So I was kind of deterred by that. I didn't want to feel like I was reading the same thing over again. However, I was pleasantly surprised by Daisy Darker. It was a well-written book. I'm going to be picking up more of the books that Alice Feeney has written because I enjoyed Daisy Darker so much. I enjoyed that atmosphere of them being alone on the island. It's a rich family. They all come together on this private island that the grandmother owns for the grandmother's birthday. And the grandmother shares that she's not going to be living much longer, and you also find out the backstory of the family, which is that the grandmother really only likes one of the grandchildren who has a heart defect, which is Daisy Darker, and that the grandmother actually wrote a children's novel named after Daisy. That children's novel is what allowed the grandmother to get the finances that she had. She reads the will, and then everyone's upset, and it kind of goes from there, but there's a really well-written plot twist. It was a little out there for me, but they did such a great job with it that I truly appreciated it. So if you haven't read Daisy Darker yet, I suggest you check it out. The next book I listened to was All Good People Here, and this was a debut novel by someone who has a true crime podcast, and man, they did such a good job. This book is about this girl is a journalist, and she's interested in investigating the death of a childhood neighbor that she had. And so while she's looking into that and pushing to get this story written, there's another crime of a murder 20 years later. So it kind of goes from there. You have the journalist perspective of trying to piece together the past and flashbacks to the past and the first crime, along with what's going on now. And that one had a really good plot twist as well. I started this month off with great audiobooks. Or I listened to Have I Told You This Already? I listened to this book by Lauren Graham, who plays Lorelai Gilmore in Gilmore Girls, through LibreForm. LibreForm is not a sponsor of this video, but I love what they stand for. They allow you to buy audiobooks through your independent bookstores and all on the app to help fund independent bookstores. So thank you, LibreForm, for letting me be an influencer and getting ALCs through you. Now back to Have I Told You This Already by Lauren Graham. This book was phenomenal. I love anything Lauren Graham does. I love the way she talks. She's quick, she's witty, she's just like Lorelai Gilmore. She does talk a little bit about Gilmore Girls in this new novel. So if you haven't watched Gilmore Girls and you want to watch it and you don't want spoilers, I don't recommend this book quite yet, but I love how she talks about the filming industry, her childhood. It was a fun, quick audiobook, and I would recommend reading it too, but if you want to listen to Lauren Graham narrate it, that's a good one to choose. Next was Hester, which I talked about a lot last month when I got it from Book of the Month, and this was a retelling fictional storyline of how Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote and was inspired to write The Scarlet Letter. I was really, really excited for this one. I've heard such great reviews, but this just wasn't it for me. I did enjoy it, but at the end of it, I just realized I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. So it was not a top read for me. I do recommend still giving it a try. It was not necessarily fun, but it was really eye-opening for a lot of things in Salem in the 1800s, and I'm not much of a historical fiction person, so maybe that's part of the reason that I didn't get too into this one, but it was still good. It was still a nice story. It just wasn't quite great. After reading Hester, I read 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. Holly Jackson also wrote A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This 5 Survive was a little different than A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I enjoyed 5 Survive. It was almost more Riley Sager Final Girls-esque. 6 high schoolers go on a spring break trip, and they are taking an RV, and then the RV breaks down, and there's a sniper outside the RV, and he's the one who made the RV break down, and it's just a lot of what's going on, why are they being attacked, does someone have a secret, is someone in the RV in on it, why is someone outside, are they going to be able to get help, it's midnight, and it was very intriguing. It's fast-paced. I enjoyed getting to know each of the characters and how it kept me up at night, because it was literally reading it at night and it was fast-paced, so I stayed up late to read each chapter. It was a lot different than A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which was, I liked the murder aspect of that. I liked the mystery. This was definitely more fast-paced and Riley Sager-esque than a YA fun detective series. So keep that in mind when reading this. It is still very good. I do highly recommend 5 Survive. Thank you, NetGalley and the publisher of 5 Survive for my advanced arc of this. After 5 Survive, I picked up Acts of Violet, which is by the author of Una Out of Order. I did not know she had a new book coming out. I didn't see it in very many bookstores until I went to Thunder Road Books in New Jersey with some friends of mine. And when I saw it there, I was like, okay, this is new to me. I need to check it out. So I did check it out from my local library. Acts of Violet is a phenomenal magician, and then she goes missing, and you get a lot of the story from her sister on the 10-year anniversary of the disappearance of Violet, and you get podcast interviews, true crime, flashbacks. This is very true crime-esque, and you learn a lot about family. Do you really know the people in your family? Was Violet a magician, or did she actually have magic? And it was a very well-written story. However, it was not as intriguing halfway through as it was in Una Out of Order. About halfway through, I almost put it down because it was a little slow paced. I wasn't as interested anymore. I think for me, it just wasn't the time to read this because it does go back and forth between the sister and the true crime podcasts and just all those bits and pieces where I really just wanted to know what was going on with the sister at times. And then you have to stop and read the podcast, and it just wasn't, I wasn't in the headspace for that. I do usually like that type of writing, but I just not this time around. The ending of this, though, made it all worth it, honestly. This was a good read at the end of the day. After Acts of Violet, I picked up Seance Tea Party, which is a cute little graphic novel that I got from my local library. This young girl here, she's about a preteen. I think she's 11 or 12. She's growing up. All of her friends are now moved on to boy bands and crushes and makeup, but she still wants to just hang out and play pretend. And she becomes friends with a ghost. And the ghost is like, hey, we used to do this. I don't know if you remember, but we used to be best friends. And it's the ghost that haunts her home. The young girl ends up growing up a little bit more. The ghost realizes that she's just in a pattern of befriending young kids. And she herself needs to grow up in a way. And it was cute. It it's a juvenile middle grade graphic novel, but it was a cute, cozy, mindless type of read. I love the illustration, and I recommend this one if you need just a palette cleanser is what I would call this. It was fun. Next, A Deadly Education. This one is very different of a read for me. I picked this up in October of 2021 and I did not finish it until November of 2022. I stopped reading it for a while. I got a little confused. I was about halfway through. Yeah, I was about halfway through when I stopped reading it, but I was determined to finish it. So I got the audiobook and I re-listened to the whole thing. It made a lot more sense for me. I enjoyed this. It's fantasy. There's magic in it. A Deadly Education. They all go to the same school. It's a magic school, and most of them end up dying because of the things in the school. And the girl that you learn, her dad actually died when he was graduating from the school, but the mom survived while she was pregnant with her. So it's all about, are you friends with the people near you, or do you want to not be friends with them because then they'll die and you don't want to be close to them? And then there's some love interest, there's magic, and this is one of 3, I believe. So I will probably do an audiobook for the second and third one on my life. As of November 17th, that is everything I've read so far. I am hoping to get in a few more books, at least. I'm in the middle of If It Bleeds, the short stories by Stephen King. I started As Seen on TV last night. I'm also 200 pages into Babel. It is big, so I'm taking my time with that, and it is very intriguing. I'm loving Babel, but I do need break. Mind-consuming book that it is. It's not as mindless as some other reads. And yeah, that's it for today, and I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you up soon.